So for this week's video, we're supposed to talk about all the more issues that we saw in the movie Eternal Sunshine. There were a great deal of moral issues. The biggest one, I believe, was the memory erasure. There was lying, there was stealing, there was infidelity, there was illegal drug use, there was alcoholism, there was pollution, there was violation of privacy records, people's records being stolen and distributed, and people's privacy rights being violated. A big thing with hospitals these days is HIPAA violation. Let's see. I think those were the major ones, although there was probably several that I didn't pick up on. But I'm going to start talking about the memory erasure. From the utilitarians' point of view, I believe that they would oppose any type of memory erasure because eventually I think it could do more harm than good. You could run the risk of erasing history. You change what an individual person, who they are. Libertarians, I believe, would think that it would be okay. You would have that right as long as you didn't hurt anyone else, and those people have the right to do the same thing too. I think Kant would believe that people should not be manipulated to feel some sort of purpose, that you should act in a way that you can universalize the principle without contradiction, which in this case you could not, because I don't think people really understand everything that memory erasure can actually do to them. Aristotle, you're basically lying to yourself, you're changing who you are, so it's morally wrong. Another issue in the movie was lying. Joel, in the beginning of the movie, he lied about, well, he was standing at the bus station getting ready to go to work, but then he gets this moment where he wants to go back to the beach, where him and Clementine met. So he suddenly starts running away, and he calls to work and says he has a stomach bug. So that's a moral issue that was seen in the movie. So the utilitarian response would be that lying's okay as long as it does not, as long as happiness is maximized and harm is minimalized. But you don't know how many people at work are affected. You don't know if they have to pick up his extra slack. You don't know how many people he would actually harm by not being there. I look at a case from the hospital's point of view. If a nurse calls out sick and she doesn't come to work, if we can't get someone to replace her, it puts an extra workload on everybody else, so it actually does more harm than it does good. It also puts patients at risk for safety too. Virtue ethics, lying is morally wrong. Virtue ethics is all about character development, desirable qualities, and lying is not a desirable quality. Kant would say that lying is always wrong. To be ethical is to respect the power of oneself and others. There was also some illegal drug use in the movie. When he's sitting there, they're talking about, he got the letter that Clementine had erased him. You can see one of the guys say, "Let's smoke a joint." Utilitarians would oppose those acts because they could lead to people harming themselves, and others would not. And if people harm themselves, if you look at that from a totality, if everybody did it, we would actually be harming ourselves more than we would actually be doing good, although I'm sure that's a controversial issue. From the libertarian point of view, it's basically, who are you to tell another person what they can or can't do? So they can choose to do what they want to with their own bodies. You saw alcoholism in the movie. Clementine had a problem with excessive drinking. Excessive drinking, I think, from a utilitarian point of view, they would oppose it because it could actually do more harm than good overall for everyone. More people are affected by alcoholism, and I've not to this day heard of any good effects that can come from that. Most libertarians on the other stand believe that forcing other people to conform to our standards and morals is just one more form of aggression. So they would, I think, let people choose to do whatever they wanted to. If you wanted to drink, you could drink. If you wanted to use drugs, you could use drugs. you're free to conduct your life without restriction as long as you're not hurting anyone else. So I guess if you want to be an alcoholic and not get on the roads and drive and, you know, and put other people at risk for harm, then it would certainly be okay. You saw Clementine comes home and she's been intoxicated and she was driving drunk. That was another moral issue, and we talked about what alcoholism can do. And certainly libertarians would oppose this on the stance that you were actually taking whatever you wanted to do and putting other people at harm. Kant says that we should only act on the principles that we could universalize without contradiction. Well, you certainly couldn't universalize driving drunk without contradiction. You saw another issue in the movie was people risking their safety, risking the safety of others when they go out onto the frozen ice. They don't really know that ice is completely frozen all the way through, so they're actually putting themselves at risk for harm. Libertarians say you have the right to do that. They oppose any type of safety laws. There was one point where you see Joel throwing a tape out. He listened to the tape and he threw it out the window. So pollution, that could potentially be a moral issue too. We have the duty that doing the right thing for the right reason. We shouldn't pollute our world for future generations. So there's a lot of opposition to that. You saw the violation of privacy records when Mary steals all of people's records and she returns them to them. Well, by stealing those, she has access to those, and people, that's their private memoirs, things that they probably don't want to share with other people. And she could, or anyone else could, once they're stolen, take a look at that and use that against someone if they wanted to. So libertarians would argue that the contract of privacy was not upheld in that case. Utilitarians would argue that it caused harm to individuals by sending those records back to them. It could potentially do more harm than good. You also saw the issue of infidelity. Mary and the doctor had a extramarital affair. And from the utilitarian's point of view, it's not good for the overall population because then marriage becomes, the whole sanctity of marriage is violated, and therefore people won't want to get married anymore if you can go out and have affairs. Libertarians, I think, would argue that you have the right to do whatever you want to do as long as you're not harming others. But basically you would be harming the other person that you're married to. Kant recognized that we're rational beings. We are also physical beings. Essentially, we are beasts who are aware we are beasts and have power to control our desires and inclinations, a power we call autonomy. You saw stealing in the movie. There was actually stealing of the files, and then you see where I believe it's Patrick steals underwear. So libertarians believe in respecting other people's property rights, so they would certainly oppose stealing someone's underwear as well as stealing someone's files. From the utilitarian point of view, stealing would harm more people than it does good. Let's see, Kant would oppose it because stealing is basically lying about what you're doing. And let's see, while working, I think that was about that. Those were the major issues that I saw in the movie. It was, I didn't like the movie in the beginning, but after going back and looking at it, it made a lot more sense after I saw it the second time, and it was a difficult movie to follow, but there were a lot of moral issues involved in that movie. Thanks a lot.